Welcome to a Message to Lightworkers podcast, an interview series created to share and connect through our healing work and our life path. My name is bri.hernandez. My spiritual name is Sandora Kuma. I'm the founder of Sollivingco, and I'll also be your host. I'd like to introduce you to today's guest. Dr. Matt Helm is an accelerated evolution guide, licensed professional counselor, clinical hypnotherapist, erotic blueprint coach, spiritual intelligence coach, certified health and wellness coach, and holistic stress management instructor. He is also a freedom and love warrior for Mother Earth and humanity. His business centers on his firm belief that freedom is the new wealth. Dr. Matt melds Eastern wisdom and Western psychology to guide individuals to discover their own unique voice of truth and expression in sex, romance, business, love, and purpose. Dr. Helm believes that the deepest, most intimate relationship you will ever have is with yourself. And you are the one you've been waiting for. Dr. Matt is the creator of Signature Talk, Evolutionary Sex, Love, and Intimacy, 4 Keys to Extraordinary, Hot, Conscious, and Sacred Relationships, and the powerful programs Love Unleashed and Healing After Heartbreak. Dr. Matt shares his expertise with individuals, couples, and aspiring leaders. From trauma recovery to intimacy coaching, Dr. Helm believes that clarifying one's inner path, psychological, emotional, and spiritual, is a way to promote both internal well-being and external success. Dr. Matt has a PhD in higher education from the University of Arizona, where he focused on professional identity, leadership, and organizational psychology. Dr. Matt received his MA in college student development from Michigan State University and a BA in psychology from Michigan State University. If that isn't a powerhouse, I don't know what is. Welcome on, Dr. Matt. How are you feeling today?
I'm feeling great. I'm with you.
Good.
And your energy is already lighting up. We're starting here at 8:30 this morning, so
Yeah.
It feels so good to be alive.
Yes.
And with you.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that. I appreciate you visiting and taking some time to connect with us all today. So throughout your bio, you've gone through a lot of schooling. You've gone through a lot of coaching. Tell me how that came to be, how so much knowledge. How did this all start for you?
Yeah, so in my early 20s, I went to college. I wrestled for Michigan State University, so I was an athlete in college, and so that was a big part of my identity. And I see that as like a pivotal place in my life where when I stopped wrestling, there was a huge gap in my life. That was the way I identified, was as an athlete. And so I started looking at what happens to athletes when they're no longer in that identity in their life. And it was there that I started to drop back into who I really was beyond athletics. I started to learn that, athletics was really soothing me. It was really offering me a way of expressing myself in the world, but it wasn't completely my truth. And it was actually masking some deeper, larger issues that were under the surface when it comes to who am I, you know? And I thought, I am a wrestler. I get all these accolades and attention and energy from the external world affirming me. And when I wasn't there anymore, I had to really drop into the truth, like, okay, who am I? And I found myself, abusing substances, right? Using alcohol, using drugs in a way that was very numbing. And that led to a lot of suffering for me because it's not who I was. And it was one of those places where I started to really get honest with myself about the pain that sits right under the surface when you're living in any kind of false way. Even if externally it looks wonderful and amazing to the world, like an athlete. I mean, I'll come to tell you, any high level athlete has some issues, right? Anyone who spends 100 hours a day or a week training and putting their body through what we put ourselves through, there's some things there. And I had to start to address those once that identity started to dissipate. So that was like the wake up call. I found that that numbing behavior was taking me further and further away from who I really was. And it was highly unconscious. I had no idea. I really had no idea what was going on with me, and started to get into some trouble at Michigan State, started to end up in the dean's office and in the counseling center. I got sanctioned to the counseling center. And I always say I went into college student development. I went through the entire system of college student development. I ended up in the residence halls, director's office for violating policy. Most of the time it was alcohol or some policy related to that. And then I ended up in the counseling center. And that was a pivotal point in my life. It was a man by the name of Bob Eubanks. He sat with me and he was able to reach right through the pain. And that connection changed my life forever. My meeting Bob Eubanks. He read me the Serenity Prayer. I don't know if you've ever heard that, but God grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. And something about that, I looked up serenity because at 22 years old, I was like, what is serenity? You know, this peace, this utter peace of mind. And I thought, I want that.
Yeah.
I haven't felt this level of peace of mind in my life. And it was happening right there in that moment. Peace of mind. I'm getting chills as I talk about it.
Yeah.
I can see myself in his office 27 years ago.
Yeah.
And when I came back to Michigan State and they introduced me as Dr. Helm to the counseling center that I ended up in, he was in the room.
Oh my God, that's wow, full circle.
And I looked at him. I mean, the hugest smile was on his face. They introduced my bio kind of like you just did. And there was a moment there between us as souls, as human beings, where I acknowledged him. I acknowledged the man that he was, and the moment that he sat with me in changed my life. His energy, something he said to me when I was 22 years old, altered my whole human existence.
Wow. So at this age, you're 22, like, was it all fixed and you just made great decisions since like that age after this moment? Or did you have some more like hiccups that kind of really pivoted you to kind of land here right now doing exactly what it is that you're doing?
Yeah. You know, with what you do with Lightworkers, they're as a light worker myself, when these moments of awakening happen and something in you ignites and some parts of you start to dissipate and dissolve, it's just the beginning, right? It's like, okay, I'm so grateful that it was early in my life, 20s, that my awakening started. But when that starts to melt and the false parts of you start to dissipate and you're in that, it's just the beginning. So here I am starting to recognize that I've been living in a way that's not congruent with who I am in my truth. That's part of the awakening. It hurts like hell to come to that acknowledgement. And then it's like total bliss, because when you're in that space, it's how do you manage that energy? How do you manage the light energy that starts to flow through you in these moments of truth where you have an opportunity to change and you have an opportunity to put the rubber to the road, your feet to the ground. And so I'd say that was just the beginning. And what did I do? I started reading voraciously. I was already a psychology undergraduate, but I was an athlete. That's all I cared about, was competing. That was my identity. But when I started to go to class, like actually go to class, I did not go to class. I took every shortcut you can imagine. I started to introduce myself to my psychology professors. I started to write these papers with passion, and I got a 4.0, right? I was like an average, barely getting by student. And when I fell in love with learning, I hated K through 12 education, hated it. It was like them hurting us and trying to get us to be a certain way. And I still feel this way about our educational system. I believe it's very much a tool of the powers, and that we are conditioning people to be, slaves. And we can talk more about that. But as I started to wake up and see that there are these various influences that want me to behave and be a certain way as a man, as a person. Certainly, when you think about racism and sexism, there were all these conditioning forces for me as a white man, heterosexual man, boxing me. And so that got ignited, waking up to everything that you can imagine waking up to. so that I could live more deeply in my truth. And as you can imagine, when you're in environments with people who have all been conditioned by the same forces, that as you start to wake up, you're like waking up in this dream world. It's like a live stroll through a dream. And waking up to that and making conscious choices, that's where I'm like, all right, I love school. I like reading, and I'm going to do this my way. And I never would have thought I'd get a master's degree. Wasn't even anywhere near my radar of what I would do with my life. Um, and then I started while I was in this master's program around all these professors. I'm like, well, why wouldn't I get a doctorate? Why wouldn't I do that? And then I realized I was actually more of an awakened doctoral student. So I was in this class and I didn't put my professors up on pedestals. I was just in there like, oh, this is a mentor. This is somebody teaching me. However, it's the deepest, most powerful socialization you go through when you get these professional degrees. They frame reality and powerfully indoctrinate you in a way of seeing the world. So I've had to undo a lot of that to be in my truth and to wake up. So yes, along the way, I've had to dismantle even what I thought was positive influence. Now, the doctorate helps me look at the world and problem solve and break things down in such a sophisticated way, but it's not intuition. It's not the way light works. It's nowhere near the way light works. So it allows me to work within the structures and systems that we have developed, but it's not really the end all be all way, as you know, right? There's another whole way of viewing the world and living in the world. So, and when I started to pick up on that through thousands of hours of meditation, right? Someone told me that to meditate for 100 hours, you'll change your life. And to meditate for 1,000 hours, you'll change your destiny. And I wanted that. Something in me lit up. There's that light again, lit up. And I'm like, I'm going to sit for that long. And when I was in psychotherapy, because eventually I found psychoanalysis, another kind of westernized approach to therapy that's beautiful. And my therapist said, 500 to 1,000 hours of sitting in analysis, you can almost reconstruct your sense of self. And I'm like, I want that. I'm like, and I did the full laying on the couch, free association, create the holding environment to regress into those places you're traumatized and hurt, and have this person sit there with you as you grieve where you abandon yourself, as you grieve the structure that distorted reality, right? Trauma, pain, the conditioning distorts who you are. And when I started to figure that out, it's like I'm after freedom at the highest level. Let's strip this down. And at some point started to get more into the light workers, right? And the metaphysical and the mystics, and on that goes. So I was telling you that, the meditation led me to breath work. The breath work led me to plant medicine, right? So I did all the Western approaches to psychological health and well-being. I'm a wellness director, so I looked at all the dimensions of wellness. And then I'm like, how, as a wellness director, am I living these? Am I living these dimensions of wellness? And in many cases I was, but in many I wasn't. So it's like, oh, if having a good social dimension of wellness increases happiness and increases well-being, how well are you doing that? What are your friendships? Who are you allowing into your life? So that's kind of the path. It was the past of kind of Western psychology, recovery, right? Ending up in recovery. Um, I've come to reframe the way I think about recovering, and I want to lead a different kind of a movement towards healing from addiction, healing the body, which I believe you can totally heal any affliction. And I have. So there's a long answer to your question.
Yeah.
So
Could you tell me a bit about that moment where, you're studying Western medicine, you're studying, and then there's a switch that goes off within you, that moment where it's like, I'm like at this moment of like surrendering or like letting go and kind of allowing yourself to move into that other side of healing, because you were talking a lot about, you're studying, and then at the same time you knew that there was more to something else at the same time. Where was that moment for you that you just, that switch went off for you to start looking at the other side, like I need to put more. I just like that moment of surrender, I guess. That's what I'm looking
Yeah.
for.
Yeah, there's so many. One of the ones that hit me hard was maybe, it's not 25 years ago. It's like maybe about 15 years ago. I'm sitting in meditation. I built a meditation room in my home, so it's so important to me. And I'm sitting there in deep meditation, and all of a sudden, like powerfully, freedom came right through the ether into my beingness. And I'm like, oh, a powerful voice, freedom. It's like freedom. It kept saying freedom. And I'm feeling the energy. So there's no logic here. It's just, what is free? And I start to see the universe moves free. It's constantly in expansion mode. When it bumps into something, it constantly starts to pull it apart, pick it apart until there's free flowing and creation. It's constantly creating. So that moment in my life was powerful because I started asking the question. Because when I sit, I would ask what, where, how, when, and let whatever sinks into my energy system. And I said, freedom for what? I sat that way for many days. Freedom for what? Freedom how? Freedom where? And that's where the word edge started to come in. And the notion of freedom, I put them together. Freedom's edge. Freedom's edge. It's actually a place. It's that place between the external and the internal. It's the place between the yin yang, but it's this edge that we all get to. It's at some point, whether it's in this lifetime or another. And I was sitting right there. And there's an exquisite choice right there. The flow of the universe is right there. And will you let that happen? So this awakening deepened in that moment. I had a moment where I dropped back into the cosmic flow and felt it. And then it becomes, how do you live there and discern there? And this was right around the time I was getting a divorce too. So you were asking me, where are these moments that really led you to where you're at? And so another moment that's close to this one is when I got divorced and everything in me fell apart. So all these notions of what a marriage is, what a relationship is, what a parent is. And so I did kind of get married under this notion that till death do us part, right? Till death do us part. All these things these romantic notions of what marriage is and the way we're conditioned around marriage. When I got divorced and I walked into my condo for the first time, my new home, without my children, and I put my children to bed every night, their whole life, all three of them, popping between beds, running a family household, being a family. And I walked in, and everything that had been keeping me together dropped. I basically walked in, I felt the deepest loneliness. I felt like I had failed as a husband, a father, a person. And all of a sudden, I couldn't hold any of the structures together. They all fell. Like it's like a mirror shattering. I've read so many stories about this happening, but when the mirror shattered, I couldn't grab any, I couldn't put it back together fast enough, which I could do in the past. Oh, let's just put this belief back. Let's put this structure back, because then, and put denial in place and all these different psychological tools we have to defend from going there, who we are before the conditioning, before this prison, because that's what fell. And it was scary as hell. And I actually fell to my knees. I thought that it was the grief of my marriage ending. It was actually the grief of existence. It was actually surrendering. So you asked about surrendering. I tried to fight that in that moment. I surrendered completely. I let myself fall apart completely. Pima Children, who wrote the book When Things Fall Apart, because you're asking about books too. It's like when things fall apart, you have an opportunity to let it fall apart. All of the energetic systems and structures, the images, body sensations, emotions, feelings, everything that congeals to form this notion of self, what we are, it's not who we are. And when that fell, and I was sitting in this alien place of truth, I was like, what is this? And I mean, I cried for like hard sobbing, wailing for 30 minutes. And I just said, just cry. Let all that energy out. Let all the hurt out. Let all the times when you weren't cared about, all the nights you slept by yourself, because I lay with my kids every night. I say good night to my kids every night. I hug them every night. It's like that was an epiphany I had. I never had that. I went to bed and you know, Mom, if you're listening, you did a great job and I love you and I really appreciate what you did for me. So what I'm talking about is I'm talking about just my father was never there. You know, these men who were in my life, they did their best. And and so all of that came in, all of that grief came in, and there was this decision. Oh, I'm like, oh, and it said Matthew, it's talking to me now. Just rest. Just sit here. I've got you. You're not alone. Don't try to put it back together. So that's one of those moments. It's one of those moments when I think about coaching, when I think about being a therapist, that's where I'm taking people. I'm taking people right to that moment where we dissolve, dismantle anything that's not truth, anything that's not complete liberation and freedom, so that you can feel the exquisite nature of what it means to be real and authentic and true. Capital T truth.
Love that. Moving through that, were you able to find that truth, that honesty within yourself, and what did that feel like for you?
Mm-hmm. It's exquisite. I would imagine you've tasted it, given that you're working with Lightworkers. And so when you get there, there's no turning back. It's the wisdom of no escape, another Pima Children book. The wisdom of no escape. It's like when you drop into truth, there's no turning back. There's only how will I live with? How will I live in complete flow of the universe moving through me? Do I have the courage when I'm in a meeting at Michigan State? Do I have the courage to stand in my truth when I'm in the systems and structures that are trying to keep you in a box? To be real and be truthful. Ultimately, that's why I don't work for a system anymore. Ultimately, that's why I'm an entrepreneur and a coach and a speaker, because you can create from your truth and people want it. People actually want this healing. And so it's an exquisite freedom, because I was on a podcast last year and they were like, Matt, you say that the vast majority of humanity is not free. And I said, exactly. I was and am one of them. So to live in your freedom and to live in that space of freedom, I think it's what all the mystics, the sages, the saints who have come before us have been trying to show us. So I have gone to great lengths to find that place. I'm a hypnotherapist. I've gone deep into hypnosis, into past lives. I've done deep psychotherapy. I've done meditation. I've been coached. I've done breath work and released trauma, because I found these beautiful people that have blazed a path before us have little keys to my freedom. So there's a humility in it. It's like, oh, thank you, universe. Thank you for this person. Last year, I worked with Satyan Raja, who taught me accelerated evolution. When you were reading my bio and you read Accelerated Evolution Guide, Satyan Raja developed the most beautiful psycho-spiritual, cutting-edge freedom technique I've ever found. So imagine having an intense experience like trauma be removed from your body in minutes versus years. And I've done EMDR and I've done other trauma release techniques, including breath work, biodynamic breathing, and trauma release. I have never found such a powerful technique. And so when I met him through the Evolutionary Business Council, so I want to give a plug to the EBC, the Evolutionary Business Council, it's Lightworkers. Its mission is to take 1,200 thought leaders to a million followers, but they're consciousness workers. They're people who are trying to shift and rescue humanity from, where we're moving. So, and so those were other moments where a teacher like Satyan and taught me methods that I believe are going to help serve humanity move towards something different and better.
So when you're working in this type of stuff, it can kind of get, it's a lot. It's a responsibility. I feel like for a lot of us, it's a responsibility that we hold ourselves to, and it can get kind of overwhelming. It can get tiring. What do you do in your free time just to kind of keep you going in like that flow? Like what keeps you, like when you get tired or overwhelmed, or just to keep yourself on track? What is it that you like to do on your free time?
I start my day. I love the mornings. So like I am a morning person. So I love the mornings. And I start every morning in my chair. It's right here. And I'd say, with those rituals of getting up and sitting and having time, like I love me. So that's something I'm like, oh, are you gonna say that? Like I love my I'm a dad and I've got people around me all the time. Oh my God, I love solitude. Sitting in the space of consciousness of what we are, that's like the most exquisite feeling I know. And when you're in direct communion with the larger nature of the universe, there's nothing better. There's no better feeling. Like it's vibrating right now. I'm touching it all. And then I like spending time with friends and family. I like nature. I'm like, all right, Larissa's my partner. She's another light worker. She's a coach and a teacher. I mean, I love to make love to her. I'm a Radic Blueprint coach. So when I have the opportunity, I like to grab her and we've got kids, five of us, five kids between us. So, and we like to make love every day, right? Multiple times a day. I don't find many couples doing that, but I love the energy I have now and the consciousness I have now directed towards the woman who means the most to me is the way I like to spend my time.
I love that.
Now we're talking about traveling and having a freedom lifestyle. If you could have it all, and if you could manifest and play with these parts of reality transurfing is what Satyan taught me, my teacher. And it's about directly connecting with the universe in this really beautiful relationship. And what does truth want? And I know now that I love the ocean. And I now know that I don't have to be in one place and call that home, that the world truly is my home. So we just got back from Mexico and we went to Tulum and we went to the sacred Mayan ruins. And you want to feel an energy. And Playa de Carmen. And we're like, let's make traveling. Let's think about being here for a month or two at a time. So how do I like to spend my time? Traveling. The other thing right now is Larissa is a Spanish teacher. She spoke so well. She negotiated everything, and it bothered me that there were these beautiful people in Mexico that I can pick up Spanish a little bit. I can tell where conversations are, but I'm committed now to spending my time learning Spanish and learning another language because I want to be able to communicate with more people, you know? So certainly we're preparing for the holidays here and being awake to what that is and being conscious to what these holidays are. But really, it's mostly about spending time with my children, my family, people I love. So
I love that. I'm kind of just running down these like quick shot questions that we have. So sorry if they're not like kind of perfectly weaving, but I think they all give valuable information. So the next question here is, what is the best investment that you've made, whether that be in time, energy, money? If you can think of the best investment, what would that be for you?
first of all, I love that question because that's where I went. I'm like, oh, was it my doctorate? Was it this coach I paid? Is it? And it's the best investment I've ever made is in waking up. It's all the hours. It's the moments that I sat on the mat. It's the moments that I took to be in direct communion with the universe and to discover who I am at my core. And so at the same time, it's like, okay, the largest financial investment I've made in my life was to Satyan and wake up Warrior Sage and Accelerated Evolution. In the moment when I was in his training facility, his home, he and his wife have dedicated their lives to waking people up and to the Warrior Sage, movement. When I sat there and he told me what the price was to work with him for a year, I didn't even blink. I didn't know where I was going to get it, but my mind started. I was like, he said, "Who wants this?" And I'm like, when you're in a moment with your coach and they're putting their offer out there, I raised my hand like I was not a hard sell. I was like, "Yes, I say yes, I will do that. How? So let me sign the dotted line." And and then I got to spend like a month with him, 5 deep dives where I'm in Hawaii, I'm out in Vancouver with him, and and then when you're with him, all these other master coaches are together, so we stay together. So that was a big one. I consider like my development. So for your audience, when I think about Lightworkers, I'm like, I've spent about $500,000. That's about what that's about what it cost to prepare me with all of the coaching and a PhD and what it cost to prepare a PhD and all of the coaches I've hired in the last 2 years. Oh my God. And I just kept saying yes. And the money just kept coming, right? And now I'm at a stage of my coaching where the abundant, like the financial abundance is starting to come, and I can see all the investment. And that's all that it is. It's an exchange with the universe. It's saying yes. I say yes to serving in this way. And there can be a really beautiful interaction with the universe in terms of financial prosperity. What is prosperity? So so that's it. I invested in me and what this human incarnation is and in waking up. And when I say freedom is the new wealth, what did you invest in? My freedom. And I went after and found every time a new teacher, every time I meet someone, right? Like you right across the screen from me, this notion of what is a light worker and your mission in the world touches my energy. And all of a sudden I'm like, oh, there it is again. A little bit more freedom, a little bit more in the flow of, because somebody's listening, right? You've got a beautiful audience, and now I'm a part of their life, and they're a part of my life, and now I know who you are. And to me, that's wealth. To me, the feeling I have right now is wealth. So,
Love that. Love that. What is one lie that you have lived by, or maybe that you're still overcoming right now? You're overcoming or attempting to overcome, or that you overcame or attempting to overcome?
yeah. Well, the fact is that we're liars, right? We don't even know it. So this is a deep question. It's like I've asked myself, when are you going to stop lying? Anytime you know the truth and who you are in these moments, you're always in a moment to live your truth. So the big one is the conditioning. The big one is the prison that gets put up around me as a man, that men aren't supposed to feel, men aren't supposed to be vulnerable, men aren't supposed to be loving. In the erotic blueprint, when I was being coached and trained as an erotic blueprint coach, and I learned what the blueprints are energetic, like how we're wired for pleasure in the world. I'm energetic. That would be considered feminine, right? Energetic men are probably the most misunderstood people on the planet. And I was like, oh my God. And I'm sensual. And that there are a lot of men who are energetic and sensual. And we're taught we're sexual. We're taught a really interesting form of masculinity to keep us as warriors for our culture. And in a warring society, they don't want a bunch of soft men, right? People. So, and probably the biggest one was that I'm unworthy. When I think about how deeply unconscious the belief of I'm not enough, I wasn't enough for my father, who was never a part of my life, that was a big reconciliation, that I'm not enough. And that one can still creep in when I'm like, you're really giving me this, the universe? You're really? It's this easy? Just keep saying yes. And the residue of trauma, the way it gets into our energy field, the way that it's held as charge, as images, because I'd say, Bri, Think about the thing that hurt you most in life.
Mm.
Can you see it as an image? And if you can see it as an image, is there a thought in that image? Is there an emotion or feeling in that image? Is there a body sensation in that image? If any of them is yes, you got a charge. Now imagine there's 20 of them. Imagine some conditioned belief or thought. It's a charge, it's an energetic charge.
Mm.
So to bring those things down, to dissolve those charges, you get closer to the truth. You get closer to being in the flow. Unobstructed flow is healing, it's health, it's wellness. That's what yoga is all about, the chakras. Unobstructed flow through the chakra system. Most people don't have that. So, and it's beliefs, it's lies. So that's a big question for me. It's like, okay, I had to dig deep and dissolve a lot of things and heal a lot of things to get to the point where I believed I was unworthy. That one still hangs out a little bit, but not much. Every bit of evidence, the woman in my life, Larissa, the entrepreneurial aspirations, the people that are coming into my life, it's where the freedom is the new wealth. It's like, okay, I got it. Anytime I'm not feeling that freedom, I know there's something false interacting, or there's a residue of energy or something in my system.
What would you tell a struggling light worker to remember as they are attempting to follow their path?
Yeah. Well, first of all, as a being of light, you're supported. You're completely supported by the universe. And like right now, I've got Metatron over here on my wall. I'm wearing Metatron as one of the most powerful archangels in the universe. So to remember you're not alone, and that if you're a light worker, you've already touched truth. You're already playing in this exquisite dance with the universe, and that the external world is powerful, right? The world is going to try to box your clients back in, and you have to stay there. And by there, I mean you have to go there to the light. You have to learn how to operationalize it, which you're doing, I'm doing, and build curriculum and build systems and build modalities and healing processes that take people there. So I always say I can't take anyone where I personally haven't gone. Freedom's Edge, I had to walk to the edge and jump. And when I jumped, I realized there was a lot of support there. At first, I thought I was going to splat. Really? Jump? Really? I know the path to freedom. And man, that path to freedom's edge is no joke. And to trust that when you jump, you're taken care of. And if I'm going to take my clients there, if there's any part that's still there that's not willing, then I need to address that. That's part of a larger cosmic plan for the universe. So light workers, you know, you're courageous, go there to the light and live there, because not many people know that path. And I love the fact that more and more people are waking up to it. And so that's my advice. Deep bow for going there, you know. So I just want to say that to your listeners, that all these people that are waking up and living in this light, that is a path that I have deep respect for. So, and I'm here for you. So you'll have my contact information. You'll be able to contact me. I'm willing to talk with your audience. I'm willing to talk with these light workers. So there's my invitation to you. If you want to take a deep dive with me and talk about these things, I'm here.
Thank you. And if you could assign one I am affirmation to everyone on the planet, what would it be?
I know you only want one.
You can give more than one if you want.
Well, it's like I am life. You know, that wasn't even on my list, but that's what just happened right now. Because it's like I am truth. I am freedom. I'm love. And the one that I was playing around with, but I just thought was kind of esoteric, is Nisargadatta, the famous like yogi. He wrote a book called I Am That I Am. And the idea is that I am awareness. And that deep freedom, I am that. Complete liberated awakeness.
I want to thank you so much for visiting us today, sharing your story, and kind of shedding a little bit of light on so much more that we can open up to. So listeners, I'd like to thank you for participating. I'm going to leave all of Matt's contact information in the info box. Make sure that you subscribe, that you like, so that you can get notifications on new episodes, and also you can help this message expand and grow throughout this huge, huge world here. Thank you for listening. I hope you guys all have a great day.